Thanks to titles like Shovel Knight, Hollow Knight, Ghosts and Goblins Resurrection, and even Sir Lovelot, I think it's fair to say that knights are the go-to hero for great side-scrolling action games. But just as what goes up must come down, every great trend eventually runs its course. And in what feels like a concerted effort to hasten the death of this trend, I present to you an awful new platformer called Horned Knight. This is a 2D action game that trips, stumbles, and falls into so many terrible design decisions that you'll be embarrassed to ever wear the suit of armor ever again. Just about the only redeeming quality found in this game is the ability to earn all the trophies and achievement in around 5 minutes. Unfortunately, that's 5 minutes of your life that you're never gonna get back. Described by the developer as a challenging 2D action platformer where you must overcome fears, enemies, and traps, Horned Knight is somehow even more generic than advertised. It's the kind of throwback game that just assumes that simply using pixel graphics and a chiptune soundtrack will be enough to mask the horrendous gameplay, amateurish level designs, frustrating bosses, and repetitive backgrounds. It's the kind of half-assed design that really makes you doubt the developer understands why people love old games and the whole neo-retro movement. You play the titular Horned Knight, who is tasked with going through 32 almost identical stages in an effort to rid the castle of a small assortment of ghouls and monsters. We have a trusty sword for protection and a dash move that'll get us over spikes and tall obstacles. Aside from jumping and occasionally pushing a box around, this is the entire extent of the knight's abilities. You slash up the castle's creatures, jump on floating platforms, avoid falling into lava pits, and, well, that's pretty much it. If you've played a 2D platformer before, then you've already seen every single part of this game. The truth is, you don't even need to play past the first few stages in order to see just about everything this game has to offer. You'll be feeling a real sense of deja vu after only a few levels, since the challenging obstacles and enemies start to repeat almost immediately. It becomes painfully clear that every stage is going to have the same type of spike trap, the same kind of blind jumping section, the same type of lava pit, and so on and so forth. Even the enemy placement is predictable to a fault. And this is not one of those situations where the repetitive level designs are made more tolerable by the varied backgrounds, because all 32 stages are set inside the castle. Sure, the backgrounds change color with each new world, but that's not enough to keep things fresh. Now, on top of the multiple levels, the developer also promises responsive controls and puzzle-like combat. This feels like false advertising, because the loose gameplay is anything but responsive, and the combat is more puzzling than puzzle-like. Your only weapon is a sword with no range, which means that you're going to need to get up close and personal if you want to kill the fireball-wielding skeletons, or the fireball-wielding snakes. And because of the awful collision detection, you'll end up taking unwanted damage when you try to get close enough to attack. The good news is that you'll earn some health back every time you kill 5 or 6 enemies. And even if you somehow still die, the game is good about the liberal checkpoints, which makes completing each stage a little too easy. When it comes right down to it, I take issue with a lot of the bullet points used to sell Horned Knight. Does it have beautiful pixel art? No, this is one of the worst looking throwback games I've reviewed in a long time. The characters, enemies, and backgrounds are simultaneously ugly and unremarkable. Is the castle amazingly diverse and filled with different environments? Well, only if you consider a slight color shift to be a dramatic change. What about the exciting action gameplay? Yeah, Horned Knight may be an action game, but it's definitely not exciting. It also doesn't have tons of monsters or tight control. And don't even get me started on the so-called intense boss battles. None of this describes the experience I had while playing through the 32 increasingly lame stages. It's almost as if they're describing a completely different and much better game. Now look, often when I trash a game like this, people will defend it by saying that it's cheap or made by a small team of inexperienced developers. The truth is, I think the creator of this game has a lot of potential as a developer, and I hope to see him hone and improve his craft going forward. But guys, even at $6, you should not buy this game. Yes, it's cheap and made by a small crew. But you know what? That also describes a whole bunch of other, much better games that deserve your money instead. Sir Love-A-Lot, for example, is only $4 more expensive and it's infinitely better. And look, that's not the only one, because you will frequently find great throwback platformers on sale for even cheaper than $6, with most of them offering better graphics, gameplay, and levels than Horned Knight. Yeah, I'd much sooner get impaled in a spike pit than play this awful game 1 minute longer. Few games missed the mark as thoroughly as Horned Knight. What should have been a nostalgic throwback game designed to scratch that pixel itch ends up being a repetitive exercise in monotony. The gameplay is loose, the levels are too similar, the backgrounds barely change, the bosses are frustrating, the story is non-existent, and worst of all, the game is never fun. It doesn't even rise to the level of being memorable. I guess achievement and trophy hunters may want to pick it up, but I have a hunch that I won't remember even playing this awful throwback game a month from now. I'm serious, there's no good reason to buy Horned Knight. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What is your least favorite old school game? I'm really talking about the 8 and 16 and maybe even the 32-bit stuff, but hey, I want to let you define it any way you want. I just know that somebody's gonna call out a game from like 2012 and I'm gonna feel like the oldest person alive. So, don't do that. Or do, it's your choice. Just let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back tomorrow with a new episode of Online Pass Replay. That's the show where Lauren and I take a news quiz from 2015. Speaking of Lauren, he'll be back on Sunday with a new episode of Defunct Games News. And then we're back to the regular grind on Monday with a new Game Over episode. If that sounds good to you, then I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then,